Hi everybody, it's Dr. Miller. I'm here to introduce you to Senior Seminar, English 4384. Welcome. I know it's online, which isn't ideal for a lot of people, but we'll do the best we can. My hair is blue. One of my kids had a birthday, so that's fun. I'm hoping it will rinse out eventually. Here we are. It's a capstone class. It's going to be great. It focuses on crime, so it's a topic that affects all of us and tends to be both a topic of literature and a relevant cultural topic. So, good stuff. I mean, not good that crime happens, but good that we're talking about it. This is my contact information. It's an online course. I prefer email. If you do need to reach me by cell, the number's there. I do prefer texting to random calls. I'm not going to know everybody's number right away. So thanks for your understanding. Be judicious. Office hours are going to get started this Friday, 10 a.m., and also by appointment. So, I'll send you links, etc. There's 2 books. You'll notice there's a link in our handy-dandy syllabus to a PDF. So feel free to enjoy fair use of that. Buy the book, for a paper copy if that's your preference. I would prefer that you get the Broadview edition of Jekyll and Hyde just because it's really well edited, and if you decide to write about it, there are really good appendices in the back. Here's our different outcomes. I will show you some of the most important outcomes. I phrase them as questions to make them more relevant to active learning. So we have, what are the big pictures of our class? What theories help us understand these issues? How can I tap into the expertise I have acquired as an English major to make this a meaningful capstone class? How can we collaborate to produce our best work? And how can I write well-supported, compelling, and polished essays? I mean, don't we want all of this? We have a lot of little things. One of the problems with senior seminar traditionally has been that you have this giant paper that's worth everything. So I've added more stuff in it. So we're going to have a notes journal. More information about that is coming up. For our participation, we're going to use Slack, which is useful in the workplace, and it's fun and people like it. So you'll be able to do all kinds of stuff. It's kind of like a mini locked down social media that's safer and more professional. So depending on how you use social media, you may or may not like that, but it's a way to get to know each other. There'll be a mini paper, collaborative writing, collaborative editing. That's one of the great things with working online is you can use things like Google Docs and have, some really great exchanges with colleagues. You're going to make a trailer for your paper abstract, and it's going to be super fun, and we're going to look at how to do that later. It's going to be great. Bibliography for your final essay, and then the final essay. You know what grades are, so there's that. And so the schedule, obviously you've got introduction, which is happening right now, how the class will work, the syllabus, online learning. And so we've got different modules. We will have optional in-person synchronous sessions that I will schedule and share with you. You do not have to attend those, but I will record them. The first thing we're going to do is to talk about old times and old crimes. And we are going to look at a very old crime, and then we'll look at some old broadside ballads. We were going to read The London Merchant, which was about a guy named George Barnwell who did something terrible. But instead, we're going to read the ballad because it's a bit shorter. However, those of you I've had in classes before, some of you have read it, so I would encourage you to draw on that knowledge. So that will be our first set of readings. There's some information there on how to find them. Then after that, we're going to talk about surveillance culture, which I think is very hot as topics go, and sort of where thinking about that and talking about it and writing about it came from. So we are going to read some older theories, and we're going to look at whether they're relevant to the way the world still works, how we might update them, what we should keep and what we may not need anymore. So we're going to read Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish, several short chapters from there. Louis Althusser, Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses. That's a heck of a one. It's really interesting. Whether you agree with it or not, it's some interesting stuff. And then we're going to read Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is short. Look, it's like 60 pages for a novella. Then we're going to look at the carceral and incarceration and mass incarceration as a problem that post-2000, post early 2000s, after the publication of The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, basically we have a lot more focus on how the justice system can work in ways that enforce and reinforce certain racist historical practices. So we'll talk about Alexander and her book and her arguments, and it's going to be really useful, I think. Especially because we're going to be watching a documentary it's a fictionalization of a real event in Central Park in the 1980s when 5 juvenile boys were convicted with very little evidence of an assault that they did not commit. And so we will look at kind of how surveillance and punishment and race all work in contemporary culture and back then too. So it'll be an interesting part of the class. Then we're going to talk about collaboration, and we're going to talk about kind of justice in other ways. We're going, into kind of a lateral place with it. A really important essay by the writer Toni Morrison, Whiteness and the Literary Imagination, asks us to think about which books people read and why, and historically what that has meant and what the significance of that has been when we think about the literary as a phenomenon. We are also going to talk about Americanness and kind of the history of this country and how that plays into concepts of restoration and justice in the justice system. So O.J. Made in America, which is about O.J. Simpson, but it's also about the kind of system that creates celebrities from football and elevates them in a particular way, and then how that connects to the fact that someone is then accused of a very violent crime and how that played out in terms of race in Los Angeles. So yeah, if you want to binge something, that's a good one. It's intense, and there's some really graphic footage of the Rodney King assault in LA. So just know that if you need someone with you while you do this, that's okay. We're going to look at Quentin Tarantino, who does a lot of this. If you've seen Inglourious Bastards, it's about kind of, fictionalizing revenge or, individually sought justice and vengeance against Hitler. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does something similar with very famous series of crimes that happened in the LA area. And Django Unchained is a way of kind of going in and trying to obliterate some of the wrongs of slavery during the time. And it's, it's a fictional representation, but it uses these tropes of the Western and revenge to do that. And then there's an episode of the Family Secrets podcast about the brother of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and his brother was the person who turned him in. And this is a very sensitive and heartfelt interview with him. So restoring justice, serving justice, reparations, restorations, that sort of thing is something that we're going to talk about, and whether, what justice means and what it means to do the right thing when something bad has happened to someone. And then we're going to work on your projects. So that's going to be great. And we'll definitely talk about that more as the semester progresses. Things that will happen continuously throughout the course. So I will do a Sunday weekly recap. It'll be a video and text update to CourseDen each Sunday that includes how each week has gone, how the next week will go, what you've contacted me about. So if like a friend of yours asks me something and I don't see it, you'll find out. So that's sort of my main CourseDen interaction, is to just put stuff up there. Weekly updates and then content that you can read and assignments. Slack is going to be for a lot of our Q&A and a lot of our social time. You'll ask questions during the week, stay in contact with one another. There are it's not a particular unit with students from Howard, but I do have a colleague at Howard who has some graduate students who are doing some interesting work in race and ethnic studies. And they've offered to be a resource. So that's one of the really cool things about online classes, is that you might get to know students at other universities who are also doing online work, and, make some new connections and, broaden our world that way. There will be occasional synchronous discussion sections. And I'm going to post those and the calendar links to those as I plan them. They are optional, totally optional, but I know people like to talk about stuff. So there's a place to talk about stuff, and I can record us. And, if you can't make one, tell me when you can make it, and we'll make sure you get to talk. So that's basically it. There's some boilerplate about COVID. Just stay safe, please. I want you all healthy and alive and happy. If you're struggling, reach out. Let's find a way to get you the resources that you need. Okay. All right. Well, we've got one more small thing to do, and that's to talk about a very nightmarish and disturbing crime from the past. And that is the mummy, Otzi. Here, I'm going to move him so that you can see how creepy he is. So this is a mummy from between 3400 and 3100 BCE. And to begin with, so this is as old a person as you can think of. They found him frozen in the Alps, and he's the oldest natural mummy in Europe. And if you look, an arrowhead was found in his left shoulder, which caused a fatal wound. So, there's an incredible story behind this. They thought that, this was the body of a recently deceased mountaineer, but they realized, oh, wow, this guy's thousands of years old. His body was remarkably well preserved. Then there was a dispute of who had actually found him. And one of the people who claimed that she found him claimed that she spat on the mummy to try and get it to be preserved. So it was some really strange stuff. But if you look, the amazing things that we can tell with the technology we have, DNA analysis means, we know that he ate some ibex, and we know, get this, cause of death. They found that there was a matching tear on his coat to the arrowhead that eventually killed him. So, ancient crimes It goes far back, guys.